Welcome to Legal Aid of Northwest Texas and the Community Revitalization Project. Legal Aid of Northwest Texas is a nonprofit law firm that provides free civil legal services to low-income individuals, families, and groups who qualify for services. The Community Revitalization Project is one of the projects within Legal Aid that provides legal help to low-income individuals and groups and focuses on three basic areas: housing justice, environmental justice, and community development. Legal Aid of Northwest Texas works to advance and protect the rights of millions of low-income people by providing free civil legal assistance to ensure equal access to justice. Our nonprofit coaching team is now happy to present to you our latest project, which is the 501c3 course of classes to support community groups in maintaining tax-exempt compliance. Thank you for joining us.
Let me just start by saying welcome. We are very happy that you're here. We are happy that you're here because we know that you are involved in something dealing with supporting the community of individuals who sometimes are not able to help themselves. And sometimes they might just need a leg up, or sometimes they might just need the idea that you bring. So thank you for being here.
Just for background purposes, Eleazar, myself, and Sam, we all work at Legal Aid of Northwest Texas, which is a nonprofit law firm which serves about 114 counties in North Texas and in West Texas. Primarily, we provide individual services, free legal services for individuals in civil areas of law. So anything from family law to landlord-tenant law to expunctions, or kind of a variety, public benefits, a variety of areas, of practice areas where individuals need assistance. And the project that Eleazar and I work on, the Community Revitalization Project here, is focused more on working on behalf of nonprofit groups or community groups, both informal nonprofit organizations as well as formal 501c3 type organizations. And we do this through kind of group client representation, as well as through capacity building through community education workshops such as this one today, and sort of encouraging sort of self-help tools and so forth. So we have our kind of target area focus in Fort Worth, in Dallas, in Lubbock, and in Amarillo for the Community Revitalization Project.
I wanted to add to the Community Revitalization Project's history that for the past 2 years, we've provided community education sessions such as this one in all aspects of nonprofit. This is specifically the backbone of your nonprofit. So we've covered grant writing, nonprofit taxes, board development. So we have been able to work with you, our community, and what we've been working to do is to build capacity. And what you've allowed us to do is to witness results. There's some of you that I've actually invited in and have been trying to come in for some reason, having difficulty, but there are organizations out there that we have seen how 2 years ago, we're just beginning, not really knowing where they were going. And in 2 years, they've had amazing exponential growth. And it's basically following the instructions of what needs to get done so that you can understand whatever your goal is, whatever your X is. So we have again, Sam Prince, Director of Development of Legal Aid of Northwest Texas, and he is going to start us off with this picture.
Today, we're going to discuss the financial information that you must assemble in order to properly report your financial situation. Now, when most people look at financial information, this is what they see: total chaos. Next picture. Now, the financial information that you need to assemble is designed to help fiduciaries operate with the appropriate perspective when managing your group's financial results. People who feel responsible for your organization need some basic information in order to develop, for lack of a better word, perspective on where you are and what you're doing. The easiest way to do that is to assemble financial information so that they have a thorough understanding of the nonprofit's various components and how they effectively work toward continuing to improve the organization's situation. Next. Now, some people refer to those who assemble numbers as bean counters. This is generally considered less than an ideal compliment, but it does in a way portray that they are in fact counting all of the various things that you do in terms of dollars and cents. For other people, it's more of a number mosaic. When they look at the various the information that you assemble, they begin to develop a picture of where you are and what you're doing. Next, please. At a certain point, everyone gets to this stage of the process where they're assembling all of this information and everything begins to look the same. At this point, you should generally take a short break, have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee,
right,
or a glass of scotch, and then come back and just begin to systematically, one step at a time, fill in the numbers until you've gotten it completed. So that in the final analysis, what you have looks a lot more like this. This would be a sample monthly budget for an organization. Simply assembling all of the various expenses according to their category: mortgage, phone, electricity, gas, salaries, office expenses, other related items. The final analysis, what you're really trying to do is put numbers in order so that they mean something. Or another way, you're attempting to tell a story of what you're doing using numbers.
I would like to ask anyone if they have any questions on the way that you should be looking at nonprofit numbers for your fiscal management. Does anybody already have any questions on what Sam has gone over?
No, so far I understand so far. It's just trying to grab that number and show exactly what's going on with your story on the philanthropy and how it works through the numbers.
Very well said. When we began to put this together, we did it with the idea that when you present numbers for a grant or loan application or any funding, the entity that is looking at it, if they are versed in giving money for worthy causes, they can look at your numbers and tell if something is missing, or tell if something is too much. So they have sort of like an X-ray vision.
Okay, so here we have a list of different financial documents that you may want, that you may already be in the practice of preparing, or you may be looking to prepare this year. And just kind of going through them, the financial statement is the topic we're going to cover in most detail today. Here, the financial statement is something that for your internal operations, say you're a board member, or say you're an executive director of the organization, you want to be able to update your financial statement quarterly and have the board review it on a quarterly basis, right? That's one of your internal mechanisms for your own fiscal transparency, your own fiscal accountability. Where are we on the budget? right? And when we were talking about the financial statement earlier, we were, Sam and Eleazar and I were talking about sort of the different type of method an organization might have. They might be documenting this on a monthly basis, right? So you have 12 financial statements kind of accumulating over the year, accumulating over on a quarterly basis. But Eleazar mentioned if you're a new organization and you're really looking to put the various steps in place, you might be recording your revenue, various income on a weekly basis, right? You might even hire a bookkeeper to keep your books for you, right? And so this is documenting your revenue, cash gifts, gifts from institutions, grants, for example, as well as in-kind gifts. That's a topic we've focused on previous workshops. The idea that if you're getting in-kind support, either through professional services or volunteers, or kind of if you're focusing on providing food or clothing and you're getting those donated to you, what you want to do is quantify that by using an in-kind receipt that you're giving to the donor, and you're asking the donor, please assign a value. What is the value of this gift? And you're going to plug that into your records, you know, as you go on a monthly basis. But that financial statement, again, we're going to focus on that more today, but that's really going to document your revenue and your expenses. And we'll use different words, but basically that's what we're describing. In terms of IRS 990 EZ or IRS 990, this is your annual tax filing. If you're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, you're required to file this every year. This is a type of document. Not only do you want to have your kind of quantitative information, your numbers in place for this, but you also want to use descriptive language to brag about yourself or to identify your kind of key program accomplishments. What are the metrics that you can use to describe how you are accomplishing your mission as a nonprofit organization? If you provide services like neighborhood supports, you know, how many people are you helping? Or if you have a type of approach where you have a partnership, maybe you have one of the groups that we work with, they provide neighborhood supports at various apartment buildings in Dallas. And so what they have is they've arranged to have in-kind support from various apartment buildings that provide them with an apartment space to use to kind of operate their after school programs out of, or whatever kind of services they're providing. And so maybe what they would be describing in their IRS 990 is we operate, you know, out of 20 apartment buildings, out of 15 apartment buildings, right? So in your IRS 990, this is going to be a key document that you use not only to fulfill your fiduciary duty to, you know, maintain your nonprofit status, but also you want to have a very sound IRS 990 document, because this is one of the key documents that potential funders are going to ask you to provide potentially, because it's a good reflection of what your activities are, what your revenue, what your in-kind sources are, how you're able to leverage resources, in-kind resources, and what you've been able to do with them, right? So you're reporting your revenue and your activities for the previous year in your IRS 990. Now, the total projected revenue, we have this listed here. We worked with an organization this year that was applying for kind of a matching grant program where if a member bank provided them with some funds, a larger entity would match those funds. But in order to qualify for this, they had to be underneath a certain threshold. So the total projected revenue was one of the documents they asked for. This just identified what are kind of resources they already have, what are resources they expect for the year. And again, we urged the group that we were working for to quantify their in-kind resources. They had received a technical assistance grant with professional services from an organization. And by quantifying those services, which were valued around $25,000, that showed that this organization was receiving $25,000 in-kind support and was working on programs and activities to kind of follow through, to be part of that technical assistance grant and also to do follow through. So organizational budget, this is going to describe, for a year term, sort of what are your existing operating revenue, operating expenses. This is also a document that a potential funder may ask you for, right? Because it gives a sense of your fiscal accountability, but also your programs and activities, right? The numbers describe what your activities are. And for nonprofit groups, especially smaller nonprofit groups, grassroots groups, community-based groups, a lot of the revenue is going to be in-kind revenue, leveraging other resources in the community. And so again, this is a place where you can plug those numbers. Program budget, here we're including this. This is something that a potential funder may ask you for if you're looking to apply for a specific type of grant. Let's say it's a grant for up to $30,000, and they're asking you to describe what you would do with that $30,000 to achieve the type of work they're looking to fund, right? And in a way, there's a flow through these different documents. One is the IRS 990. Again, it's demonstrating what you're already doing, what you've already done. There's a storytelling role in your IRS 990 because there is a section where you're going to use descriptive language to describe your, again, your key programs, how many people you served, the geographic area you focused on, the sort of demographic information, if that's important. If you're serving children, right, children or families, you're going to want to have as accurate a reflection of your work as possible in that, including leveraging resources from other sources. And that's important because down the line for a program budget for a future grant, it's very likely that a potential funder would review your IRS 990 to see what kind of track record you have for operating programs that they're looking to fund, right? And so these are related documents, but they have kind of a different focus. The one that we're going to speak to, in the past, we've spoken about the IRS 990. Today, we're going to focus more really on the financial statement, the underlying document that kind of informs these various other programs. So balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement. Now, these financial statements really are not solely specific to nonprofit organizations, right? These are also documents that businesses or business cooperatives or worker cooperatives would also use, right? These are kind of standard financial statements, financial documents. So financial statements are written records that convey the business activities and the financial performance of a company or nonprofit organization. The balance sheet provides an overview of assets, liabilities, and equity as a snapshot in time. The income statement primarily focuses on a company's revenue and expenses during a particular period. Once expenses are subtracted from revenue, the statement produces a company's profit figure called net income. Cash flow statement measures how well a company generates cash to pay its debt obligations, funds its operating expenses, and funds investments. So the same kind of, while this is sort of may seem like business language, what you're really looking at is you're describing your revenue and you're describing your operating expenses. And if there's any equity left over, you're describing that, right? If you're a nonprofit organization, You may have overhead, you may have office space or a lease, right? Those are some fixed costs. Salary positions, those are fixed costs, but there's also, programs that you may operate. And what you're trying to identify is, again, your assets, your liabilities, but also your revenue and expenses, right? Just different ways of expressing what's coming in and what's going out. Sam, do you want to add anything here? Okay. So assets, balance sheet, liability, and equities, similar assets. Do you have any equipment? Do you have any building space? Liability, what fixed costs do you already anticipate? What fixed cost must you, the phone bill, who's going to pay for that, right? There's a process for making sure that you have the revenue or assets to cover your liabilities, right? Are you fiscally solvent, right? Is the question. Next here, I think where, the bookkeeping, again, this could be done on a weekly basis. If you're just starting out, maybe you're looking to do it on a weekly basis, right? It gives you the greatest control. It can be done on a monthly basis, right? It can be done internally by a board member, by a staff, a director, if you have that person, a staff member. It could be done by an external bookkeeper, right? An accountant who's quantifying the information for you. But the important thing to remember is that the board, as the fiduciaries of the organization, have a role in, an oversight role in making sure that the bookkeeping and related financial and documents are being prepared. But the underlying components, the X, piece here is plugging in the numbers on a regular basis, both for small donors, formal grants that you might receive, high net worth, gifts that you might receive, in-kind support that you might receive. You want to be in the habit of having someone assigned to the task of tallying these various revenue sources, gifts of different kinds, and then also the expenses. The good thing about your expenses is that they more or less, may be steady, right? Maybe sort of fixed over time. But as you receive, say you were to receive a significant grant, then you would want to spend those dollars. And so your expenses, upon the receipt of that grant would grow, right? Because you're doing something, either hiring more staff or producing publication materials or what have you to deliver the programs and services. So the bookkeeping is the way as a fiduciary nonprofit organization, it's the way you're showing what you're receiving and how you're spending it. And board development, I think the point that we want to make here is that the board, you may have a diverse board, and it may not be their role to prepare this document necessarily, but you should be comfortable with reading it, comfortable with understanding it, comfortable with seeing if there are any glaring mistakes, and comfortable presenting this. If one of your roles as a board member is to raise money, some types of institutions that you might reach out to, government entities, banks, foundations, what have you, they're going to want to see your records, right? And it's better for you to be comfortable and transparent with those records and have them, prepared to the best of your ability to provide them in a short turnaround time. So some of this you're doing for your own internal operations, but you're also doing it for your external outreach to potential funders, right? and you're wanting to disclose this in the most confident way possible. So underneath all of that is having somebody assigned, a bookkeeper, assigned to tallying it to make sure it's being done in accordance with, the board's policy. How does the board want this prepared and reviewed so that they're at a minimum reflecting on it on a quarterly basis? Next slide.
This is the part where I've been trying to get Rose Brazil from Hope for Kids Foundation. She has an amazing story with regard to her bookkeeping experience, how she got to understanding that it is the backbone of her organization. And she also, she's texting me that she can't get in for some reason. She's not getting the link, unfortunately. I cannot support her at this point. But she also has a great story on board development. And I'm going to just step in her story and just say she had come up to me about last year in September and said that she was having a hard time because of the pandemic, was having an effect on volunteers. And so I asked her what she was trying to do and came up with the understanding that, and I told her it is not that you don't are not able to get volunteers. It is that you need an active board of directors. An active board of directors is a board that is working with you to support what you are looking to accomplish. You're doing really great, on a shoestring budget, and sometimes you don't even have it. There's like the shoestring is frayed, and you're doing a lot of work, but you're doing it all your own. You need to take the same passion, give it to somebody else, make sure that they join your board and teach them how it is that this machine works. So she has an amazing story. She found the link, so hopefully she'll be able to come in, and we'll get back to her because we do want to cover a couple of more items coming in and going to a question and answer session. So we will allow her to speak at the end if there's time. But just to speak on this, you need experience. This is the work through. You have somebody that has a small tool that enables you to maintain track of what came in, what went out. And then you have a group of people who are coming from different perspectives who you need to explain to them, these are these numbers. And Sam was explaining that some of them are going to come in and they're going to just look at a hodgepodge. You need to be able to explain it in a way that makes sense. That's why the bookkeeping and the budgeting is so important. All right, so thank you. Okay, so if no questions, we're going to go into quantifying, which is something that I think that this is what actually stumps most nonprofits or groups that are looking to provide nonprofit reporting in 990s, because it's to them a lot of information that they need to keep track of. But the secret is that the category of items that they need to keep track of is very little, it's very small. What was it that you spent, the total expenditures, what grants the nonprofit gave to the government or a government outside the United States? That's actually a question in the 990 that usually has an answer of 0 for our local nonprofits. The operating budget should also show if you give money to other organizations and what money or services or program expenses you spend to bring services to individuals. So you see, it's only generally on the individual's portion of our equation that we need to quantify. Benefits paid to members are members of the board of directors, which are fiduciary and generally do not get paid for the kind of work. So your operating budget is whatever it costs you to run your organization. And within that, you have administrative costs, you have employment, and then you have program or project expenses. So you quantify those, and that is what you can present as your operating budget. This might look like a crazy thing, but it's coming from the 990 EZ form from the IRS. And basically it's telling you in part 1, line 17, this is what we want to know. Your total expenses, what are they? If you concern yourself with making sure that you track down when it's a program expense or is a transportation expense or is, rental or utilities, phones, things like that. If you keep track of them, then you have categorized all of the expenses that our simple grassroots 990 EZ should be reflecting. Me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I know you've battled like a champ to get in here. What happened? You've had a lot of experience in bookkeeping and quantifying the services, particularly the time that your volunteers.
Yes, each event that we have, I have a sheet printed out. I print out what the event is, and I have my volunteers sign it, sign their names and the hours that they work. Every time we have an event, we do that. And also whenever I need services, if it's money from someone, I give them an in-kind, or it's things, I have a different in-kind I give them. So I put down in detail what that donation was.
So it is, if it's actually cash, you give them a cash receipt or a receipt for cash. If it's an item
Yes.
or a service, you give them. And you were telling me that you walk around with those things like you want to get rid of all of them.
I do. I keep them all the time. I always offer that. And some people have us to pay some money, and then we make up for the difference in the in-kind.
And you keep track of that with the receipt that you hand them.
I give them a receipt, and I have a receipt as well.
Okay.
If it's things, they need to sign it.
Right. And they have to say what it is that they donated and what value it has.
Yes.
Last 990 that you did, I know that you were surprised with the timekeeping for the volunteers. It was a lot of hours, and it was
A lot of hours.
and a lot of money, because you quantify the hours that were donated and you have the documentation. So that's part of the nonprofit bookkeeping, and that's why I wanted your input today, because it's important that organizations that are looking to show what nonprofit work is costing, there are things that are being donated, and in nonprofit there's a way to quantify it, and it's called in-kind services and in-kind item donation. Tell me a little bit about your board development. I started to tell your story about you needed volunteers because the pandemic kind of like caused everything to go haywire. And then I recommended, no, don't focus on the volunteers, focus on developing your board. What have you learned?
I've learned that if you get the right people on your board, it fills in for you not having volunteers, because they're going to be active and get the job done. So whatever I ask them to do, they always go beyond, because they're interested in what the cause is. When the first board I have, they were totally inactive. They just got on it just to help me out, and I didn't need that. I still had no help. I was doing everything. But the board that I have now, they're interested. They get their family members to volunteer, and we always have more than enough help.
And I know you're growing in certain areas, and you caught the attention of Nike, and they're providing some benefits for the community that you're serving, 76105. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. My son went into Nike's store, and he was reading a sheet where they had activities that they were doing. So he told them about us, so they wanted to partner with us. So we're going to have a event serving 1,500 people in the community. We're calling it a community event. We're going to have different obstacles. Nike is going to provide free shoes. We're going to have hair cutting out there. Lockheed Martin, the unemployment office. I have a real estate people that are coming. The service is coming. The police is coming. The fire department. So it's going to be a huge event, September the 18th.
It's amazing just to hear it, because just a year ago, we were having problems with volunteers.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that, Rose. Rose has been with us since inception. 2 years ago, she received services and obtained the 501c3 for her nonprofit efforts. And she's followed us in all of the workshops and is one of our top volunteers. When we to know what we're going to talk about, we'll say, hey, Rose, what problems are you having? You know, what's going on in your, what's your nonprofit doing that, you know,
It's been
that.
a challenge.
I'm sorry?
In July, we're having a fundraiser. All my entertainment, I got most of them with in-kind. I got over $2,000 worth of entertainment with in-kind.
That's wonderful. So, so again, board development, good bookkeeping, so that you can keep the board appraised of, you know, what the skeletal structure, which is your fiscal accountability, you know, to what it's looking like. Thank you, Rose. You can always feel free to continue to share. I'm going to just move this along. We're almost at, we are at the tail end of this. Let me just get to where we were. When you deal with 990 Easy, you don't have to worry about all this stuff. I know that it looks like just a lot of information. The main thing is to understand total expenses equals your operating budget in nonprofit. I'm going to give it to Sam to give us 3 takeaways. Yes, sir.
Our 3 takeaways today are: number 1, you should understand what your financial position is, and that means you need to assemble the financial information in such a fashion that it makes sense to you. Secondly, you need to work through that information so that you can produce the documents needed to show everyone else that would be looking at your financial records that you're managed properly. And then third, you should constantly work on improving your program and your revenues and expenses so that you show yourself to be an efficiently run, effective organization.
Very good. Thank you for coming, and I'm happy to release you within 1 hour of starting. Go and light your world, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
God bless.
God bless you guys.
Bye.